or this is the first session that you're watching with me, my name is Leanne and I'm part of the Vancouver Startup Week team. I do want to take a moment to acknowledge that we're grateful to be virtually gathered on Indigenous land, regardless of where you're joining us from. At my home in Vancouver, I'm grateful to be on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish peoples. Thank you for joining us for VSW 2021, and welcome to today's session, How to Conquer Your Fear of Sales, Increasing Your Close Rate Even in Uncertain Times, hosted by HubSpot for Startups. This session is part of the VSW Founder Track, which is proudly supported by Sage Accounting. As you all know, Sage knows you didn't start your business to become an accountant. So Sage Accounting keeps your business organized and running smoothly. That's through tracking your cash flow, sending out invoices, and getting paid quickly. Definitely recommend taking some time to visit the Sage Accounting booth within the HubSpot platform to access some free guides, templates, and everything you'll need to start your business finances right away. Plus, get an exclusive VSW discount just to make sure that you're ready to go. I also want to take a moment to thank HubSpot for Startups for being our event partner and also our sponsor. Vancouver Startup Week could not happen without the continuous support of our community sponsors. During today's session, as a reminder, please be sure to post your questions throughout on the HubSpot platform. Make sure that you upvote your questions so that we can see them and we will ask them at the end of the session. Without further ado, I pass the microphone over and let's begin the session.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. Let me get my screen share up and running and we can kick things off. All right. Awesome. So welcome. Today we are going to be talking about how to get over your fear of sales. I'll start by doing a quick intro, a bit of background. My name is Magdalene Small. I am a fairly tenured HubSpotter. I've been there for 6+ years. I started out my career actually as an opera singer, and then I came into the wonderful world of sales. So I worked pretty much every sales role in the HubSpot org. Ultimately ended up as a sales rep on our small business sales team. So working with startups and early stage companies and small businesses to help them evaluate our platform. From there, about a year and a half ago, I moved over to our HubSpot for Startups team. I currently run all of our go-to-market partnerships in the Southwest for our HubSpot for Startups and Entrepreneurs program. Bit of fun facts, I'm a Wisconsin native. I currently live in LA with my little dog, and I'm really, really passionate about sales, marketing, and startups, extremely passionate about the sales piece. So very excited to share some insight with you and be talking with you today. I will just reiterate, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to drop them in the Q&A. I'll try to take some pauses, make sure I'm checking that throughout. Otherwise, we will definitely pause for questions at the end. All right. So what are we talking about today? Talking about a little bit of fear. I think for anyone who hasn't been in a traditional selling role, and even people who might have been in a selling role and maybe not had the best experience with it, sales can often come with a little bit of fear when it's actually time to approach selling. We want to get rid of that and we want to get over that. So today we're going to be talking about sales in the current environment, the role that sales plays in today's B2B buying process, your own sales process, some personal fears that most of us as either former salespeople, current salespeople, or someone who's having to wear a sales hat might be running into. We'll talk about conquering and getting over some of those fears, tips to increase your actual conversion rates, and then using automation to help you sell smarter. So let's start by talking about, but now is the right time to sell. We've all had a very not normal year. What we have found at HubSpot is there's been kind of this fear of selling in this unusual environment. But obviously as a business, you need to keep selling to keep things afloat. You have a responsibility to your investors, to your employees. What we found has been working best is to continue to lead with empathy and sensitivity, run a less pressury sales tactic, which I also think you should never be really running a pressury sales tactic. If you are leading with a human element, with empathy, you're gonna be running a good sales process there. And really listen to your customers. And again, I think this goes for kind of any time you're selling. Listen to what your customers need, ask them what works best for them. Take examples from your existing customer base and apply that to your prospect base. Lean on things like resources, training, help, really lean on the human side of it. And don't sell with desperation, really make it about your actual prospects and customers. I think we've all been in a situation where we could kind of sniff out as a consumer or as someone evaluating product for our own business that a salesperson was really desperate, that's never going to close a sale. So continue to lean on your thought leadership in your industry, lean on the quality of your product, lean on resources, lean on customer service, and you'll find that it's still very possible to sell even no matter what the climate is, and as we're coming out of a very odd climate. So let's talk a little bit about the role of sales in today's B2B buying experience. A few key things to remember. Buyers today are more in control than ever. And again, I always, when I'm selling, I think about putting myself in the role of the consumer. You've probably all experienced this as a direct consumer. Buyers can find information before they ever engage with a salesperson from that business. Think about the way that you go to evaluate a new product or service. It's likely that you're Googling, maybe you're asking a friend if they have any recommendations or referrals. Maybe you saw even an awesome targeted ad and you're like, yeah, that actually looks like a pretty cool brand. Essentially, you're doing a lot of research on your own. You're not first thing picking up the phone and actually calling that business or asking for a sample product. Buyers have also gotten really good at blocking out interruptive sales techniques. So we all, I think, have a really heightened experience. Buyers don't want spammy cold calls, spammy unpersonalized emails. Buyers are really good at blocking out ads that they don't think are relevant to them. And this all means that buyers ultimately have a heightened expectation around what the experience of buying should be. Now, I think we should all look at this as really a positive. This means that we can really rise to a new level when we are approaching sales and marketing for our prospects and customers. And again, always come back to put yourself in the shoes of your consumer and think about what experience you would like them to have with your business and brand. So digging in a little bit to this more of the change in the buyer's journey. So what used to happen in the old world before buyers really took more control of the process was that it was a really linear buyer's journey. And it was heavily, heavily focused on the prospective buyer getting in touch with the actual organization themselves. And most of the information was gated by the salesperson. So the buyer would have to reach out and set up maybe an initial conference call, maybe a sales call, then set up an on-site meeting, negotiate a purchase. Essentially, though, everything was in the hands of the salesperson in the business. And what this meant is that the company could really focus pretty exclusively on quality of product and not really have to pay attention about how their consumer was feeling about the buying experience because they were controlling that whole experience. Now, what does the buyer's journey look like today? Today, the buyer's journey is a lot more personalized and is a lot heavier leaning on research that they're doing on their own and on touch points that they might have with your brand and business outside of just an interaction that's controlled by your sales team. So you can think about this like we just talked about. Buyers might come in, they might see a social media ad, then they might check out a blog article. Maybe they come to one of your events, maybe they do a quick Google on you, ask a customer or a fellow friend if maybe they've ever bought from you or they had an experience with your business. And then ultimately, you're going to have those sales interactions mixed in. So as your prospects are coming in, they're reading blog articles, they're coming to your website, they're downloading content, you're also going to be likely meeting with them as a salesperson. So maybe they come, they do this research, they Google you, they end up, contacting sales and actually book a call with you or your sales team. Maybe they come back after you've had a call and you send them a piece of educational content, and then they come back to your following meeting having watched that. The process is much more balanced between the research that they're doing on their own and the information that they are coming to you and your sales team to seek. And what this means is that you need to shoot for a really, really unified sales and brand experience, no matter what is happening with that prospect, whether they are consuming content from your overall website or whether they are on the phone with a salesperson. So what you can think about is that the balance has really shifted to really focus a little bit more heavily on buying experience than only focusing on product. Obviously, you still need an awesome product, something that is standout, something that works really well with a great user experience, but buying experience is really important in today's sale as well. Meaning that the best product doesn't necessarily always win. In other words, it's not only what you sell, it's how you go to market that's extremely impactful. So let's talk a little bit about how you sell and how you go to market with your sales process. Now, this can be, I think, kind of a scary thing if you've never run a sale before, or if you're thinking, hey, you know what, I've been kind of selling ad hoc as the founder, I've been wearing a few hats and I want to hire some salespeople. And I really want to tell them, though, to follow a specific process. How do you start by creating that? The first thing I would say is take an audit of some deals that you have won or some business you've won or or even some engagements you had with a prospective customer, say you're even really early stage, maybe in a beta. What conversations have you had with an interested prospect, like an interested prospective party, and what different steps did you take? And what information did you need along the way? What you're probably going to find if you look at a few of those is that there is a repeatable process, and there are certain milestone benchmarks that you needed to hit where there was certain information required that both parties extract and give to each other in order to make sure that it was a mutually good fit to progress to the next process of the sales phase or your sales process. So typically, with a lot of businesses, a sales process will boil down into these 4 categories. You will have a phase where you are prospecting. So with that, you're identifying who your potential points of contact would be. You're doing some type of email or call outreach, and you're doing maybe even a little bit of social selling. But ultimately, you're looking to say, hey, you're giving me some indicators that you would be a good fit as a customer for me. I think from what I can see in my research that you would also be a good customer. I'm going to go after you. We should get in touch. We should talk. Once you've prospected a potential customer, then you want to start to do discovery. The discovery phase is really where you are saying, we want to make, like I as a salesperson want to make best use of your time. I want to figure out as quickly as possible if you could be a good fit for our product and if we could add value to you, and then we can start to discuss what that's going to look like. So in this, you're establishing not only rapport, but you're actually establishing trusted advisorship. What you're really establishing in the way that you run your discovery and the way you run your early conversations in the sales process is that you really are going to be a trusted advisor, a trusted helper in the sales process, not just someone that's going to recommend product to them that might not be a fit. During this process, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, in the discovery, it's really important to identify goals, plans, challenges, timeline, budget, and decision maker. And like I said, to establish that all of this is in alignment so that you can take them to the next step and that it's going to be a mutually beneficial use of your time and of your prospective customer's time. With step 3, this is the value add stage. So at this point, you have gone through your discovery, you have made it known that, hey, this looks like this is going to be a good fit based on everything you have told me. If we can do X, Y, Z to solve these pain points for you, this would be a good fit for a prospective purchase. At this point, we're going to start to show proof of concept. So demonstrate the solution, send out samples, whatever it might be. And this is a stage where you can really provide some value beyond just selling. This might be a stage where you connect someone with a customer referral. This might be a stage where if they're really concerned about ongoing implementation or support, maybe you have them talk with the member of your team who would be managing their account ongoing, or talk with another customer. Or maybe you're working with someone who's an internal champion, and maybe they need to convince a broader team that this is a good idea. This is where you can help provide them with resources, case studies, decks, ROI reports, whatever it's going to be that's going to help them to help show their team the value your product or service is going to add. And from there, lastly, you have the close and delight. So at this point, it should be mutually agreed upon that your challenges, goals, plans, timelines should all be mutually agreed upon. We've done proof of concept with the product or service, and now we are confirming the actual implementation. We're confirming that everything aligns. We are confirming pricing. We are moving them into the next steps in terms of either guided onboarding, changing hands, or just actually getting them your product or service. And then we are, if you have a model that has a potential for upsell, cross-sell, you are letting them know how you will be engaging with them from an ongoing install-based perspective. By that, I mean, if you're a salesperson and you do potentially see a fit to sell more product into the account, you can let them know at this point. Say, hey, this was so great working with you. Based on our mutually agreed upon goals, it sounds like in maybe 6 weeks or 6 months, it might be a good idea for us to check in and see how things have grown and progressed. And if we may be able to help you further, I'm going to go ahead and put a proactive calendar touch base on there for us, just so we can stay in touch and I can make sure you have the best experience possible. So all of this to say, as you're setting up your sales process, you can think of these as being your big benchmarks, and then make deal stages in a sales process that is really extremely factual and accurate to how you are actually running things. So as you start to sell, what are some things that people are afraid of? Some things that people fear are a fear of personal rejection. Another one might be appearing too pushy or not knowing what to say. These are all things that I can tell you, having sold, I've definitely felt at different points in time. I think these are all very human emotions, but let's talk about how we can conquer these fears and more effectively sell. 1, the fear of rejection. So, bit of stats to comfort us all here. 80% of sales require 5 follow-up calls, but 44% of sales reps give up after 1 follow-up. This is extremely, extremely relevant. There's data that also talks about how much follow-up email it takes to actually get in touch with someone. People are busy. They could be really interested. I can't tell you the amount of times that I have been prospecting, going after an account, 4, 5 emails later, plus 5 calls, plus 5 voicemails. All of a sudden, I finally get a hold of them. They go, yes, actually, my inbox has just been slammed. We've really been meaning to evaluate this. Would love to get in touch. Persistence, as long as you've done your due diligence to make sure that you're going after someone who really could benefit from your product or service, persistence can be really, really beneficial and really key. So, how can we start to get over, though, this fear of rejection? Listing out fears is always great. I think this one, though, accepting that no is normal and even a good thing, this is most impactful. When you're thinking about selling, you are looking to get to a yes or no as quick as possible. Time is of the essence. You want to make sure you're using your time as best as possible and that you're not honestly wasting your prospect or your customer's time. The quicker you can actually get to a qualified no or yes, the better. So if someone's really telling you a lot of objections that you can't overcome and you believe them, timing is just off, their budget is not there, and they give you that no upfront, that's great. That frees up your time to go hunt a better account, hunt a better fit prospect, and get someone who might actually close into your sales process and pipeline. Another way to get over fear of rejection is to set small, achievable goals. Understand that you are selling in some capacity every day. With every interaction with your prospects, you are continuing them throughout down your sales process and down your sales funnel. Also understand that kind of in life, there's always something a little bit salesy that's happening. So it's not that you're having to completely shift your mentality to get into a sales mentality. Something else you can do is you can call prospects out in the open or have teammates listen to your calls, have teammates read your email template. I'm a big, big fan of having second eyes on something or second voice on calls. So if you're feeling like, hey, you know what, I'm not feeling like I'm really confident on my calls and I don't really know why, invite a colleague, invite a mentor, have someone listen to you, have someone coach with you, ask a friend to read an email template. Sometimes just having someone else's eyes to edit something and either say, yeah, this sounds great. This isn't too pushy. This isn't too forward. Or, yeah, you know what? I think you could be pausing more. Coaching is always helpful. And then preparation. If you've come into a call prepared, you did your research, you handled your objections, even if you get the no, you did your work. That is not on you. That's not your fault. Rejection happens. So how can we start to overcome the fear of being too pushy? This is one that I think always comes up. There's this idea that salespeople are always really, really pushy, really a bit too salesy. And that's one that I would push against. So I personally conquer this by shifting your mindset. Remember what you love, but I think more also importantly, remember that you are selling a product or a service that will help people. Remember the why of your own business. Why are you valuable? Why would someone purchase your product? Why would someone purchase your service? Why would someone use your software? If you are going after potential customers or prospects who are aligned with that why, then you don't have to feel bad about being too pushy. And if you're doing your discovery correctly, you don't have to feel bad about being too pushy because ultimately you are trying to help them fix problems that they've told you they need fixed that you can help solve for. When doing that, you'll also start to create a really strong company culture. Another way to get over the fear of being too pushy is do more asking and less talking. So if you feel like you are just talking at someone, you're throwing all of this information over to them, you're just really, really going in heavy, start to take an audit of how much you're talking in your conversations and start to pull that back. I think a great way and something I always think about is the 80-20 rule. You want probably 80% of the conversation to be focused on them, asking questions about them, letting them talk, and 20% in that discovery to be really just talking about you, your product, your service. So really think of the 80-20 there. And anytime too, this is a nice one, anytime you're feeling maybe too pushy or like you've talked too much, you got too excited about your own product, ask an open-ended question and then put yourself on mute. It turns the conversation over, lets people feel a little bit more free to engage with you, kind of reverses some of that and can help really do a kind of tonal shift reset if you are feeling that you've gotten a little bit overbearing in a conversation with a prospect. Tying into that, you always want to make sure you're asking questions focused on the prospect and their goals. And like I said, open-ended questions are your best friend. The best way to not seem pushy is to be genuinely curious and to be genuinely interested in the person you are talking to. And a great way, if you're feeling like, okay, you know, I am, but what questions do I ask? Open-ended questions. Tell me more about that. How is that? Why is that? Interesting. Tell me more. And then use your mute button, put yourself on mute. That is going to really help you. And then lastly, be upfront with what you are trying to get out of conversations. And you can do that by setting an upfront contract. By that, I mean, going into any conversation, you want to set an agenda. You want to be mutually agreed in terms of what you are both trying to get out of the call. And you can even set an upfront contract for your whole sales process. In that, I mean, defining what your role is. So I used to say something like, "Hi, my name is Magdalene. I've been at HubSpot for X amount of years. My role is to help determine if this is going to be a good fit product and platform to solve for your personal goals and any challenges that you and your business are facing. In order to do that, I'm going to need to ask you some questions around your business process, around your software systems process, and around your business goals and your marketing structure. How does this sound to you? Does this sound like a good process to you? Okay, great. Basically allows you to mutually agree that you are going to be asking a lot of questions. You are going to be digging in with things that if at any point your prospect feels like that's not a fit, they can opt out because you've set this contract. So this final one, I think, is a really interesting one, the fear of not knowing what to say. This is one that I ran into early on as my career as a sales rep. I think it can crop up at all different times, but one of the things that I remind myself of the most is actually this last one, which is to remember that no one knows everything. In defining your role and what you know, you can better serve your prospect. So I always think about it as a salesperson, I'm like your quarterback. I am not supposed to know every single answer to every single question, but what I am supposed to be able to do is get you those answers to those questions. So it is always okay to be upfront that you don't know something, that you might need to ask another team member, might need to do some research, or might just need to do some thinking on it. The more genuine you can be and the more upfront you can be about what you do and don't know, it's going to help you to continue to establish that trusted advisor status with your prospects. Some other ways that you can be more prepped on calls are doing things like writing out your introduction, having a good idea of what persona you're talking to. So making sure that the tone of your conversation is going to match and mirror the type of prospect that you're selling to. You can map out potential objections. This is one I always used to do when I was selling, map out what I thought they were going to love, what I thought they were going to come back with an objection, what I wanted to do, how I would handle those. So build in these habits by just making it easy on yourself. Write out the next questions you want to ask, write out some objections. Practice makes perfect, and continuously running call reviews. But I think ultimately that the main thing is no matter how much you do know, even if you build the product yourself, at some point in time, someone's probably going to lob a question at you that you don't have an immediate answer to. The best you can do is say, "Great question. I love that. I'm actually going to write that down and I'm going to follow up with an answer for you by end of day today." So some interesting ways in here. I think another, like, tying into the fear of not knowing what to say, is a fear of getting price questions thrown at you too quickly. I think when talking pricing, it is always, always, always imperative to make sure that you actually have all of your objections handled first. And then also to be really upfront and really transparent about the way you price. So by that, I mean, I bring up pricing in my discovery call. I never want a prospect to feel like they have been completely blindsided by the way we price our package and that we've gotten through this great sales process together. We are mutually agreed on their goals and how my product could help them solve for that. But all of a sudden they're like, "We simply don't have budget for this. This is way out of the ballpark." It's up to me as a qualified sales rep to really make sure that my prospect is comfortable with pricing and packaging, list pricing and packaging up front. And then know that we're saving the negotiation for later in the process when we are mutually agreed on aligned goals. So you can always think about it. Don't be afraid to talk price. There's a lot of different ways you can handle that. Some of the things that I used to say were we'd show list pricing up front, and I would just say, like, "Hey, I just wanted you to be familiar with our ballpark or with our list pricing and packaging, with the way that we price and package. We'll work on custom pricing for you down the road. Any questions around this?" But really just kind of socializing the idea of this isn't a scary thing that we're going to have to hide and then discuss. We're going to be really transparent with it and let my prospects know if we agree upon everything and you love this and you want to get started, we can talk price, we can make this work for you. So some other interesting things as you're looking to up level your own sales process that you can do are reviewing your calls. Now, this is one area where I think I've been in a lot of call reviews where all of a sudden it's, 30 minutes later and all we've done is just listen to a call straight through. The best thing you can do when you are doing a call review is to first take a listen of your own call and pick out the highlighted points where you feel like you either did really well or did really poorly and would be looking for feedback and need improvement. This is going to, if you can timestamp this and ask for feedback on that, it's going to really help your team or your mentor, whoever you're taking this to be able to effectively coach with you. And then I would say also, as you're looking to improve, map out, say if you want to do 10 things that you want to improve on your call, start by listing them all out and then literally focus on 1 to 3 at a time. You're not going to be able to fix everything at once, and really hyper focusing on one area is going to help you to get better at that and then move on to the next piece where you can improve. So looking at tips and ways to increase your conversion throughout your sales process. One piece, as salespeople, we email a lot. Your email outreach, the way in which you email, is mission critical to the amount of deals you are able to get into your pipeline. And again, that trusted advisor status, it starts from that first email. Think about it. If you get a really great prospecting email, you're like, that was super timely and that was really personalized. That was awesome. I've got a good feeling about this brand and business. It goes back to those first slides we looked at of establishing that brand experience and that good sales experience from your first outreach. Look at your email format. Some things you want to pick out. You want to make your email really timely, really personalized. You want to keep a short and to the point subject line, and make sure, again, think about the 80-20 rule, that you are mostly referencing your prospect, what you think they could benefit from, adding value, and then lightly referencing, hey, by the way, we can do this, we can add this value, versus just sending a heavy email that only talks about your business, how great you are, your stats, that type of stuff. Really referencing and keeping it personalized to your prospect is going to be the most impactful. Some things to keep in mind of what to say and not to say. These are just some words that can hurt your engagement and hurt your conversion rates. So in looking at this, the overall takeaway here is you want to, again, instead of thinking about you in terms that make sense to you internally, like discount, contract, competitors, things like that, you want to think about words that are going to put you in the world of your prospect. So use language that mirrors, that makes sense to their industry, that makes sense to them. And again, focus less on yourself and your own business and really talk about them and theirs. Back to emails. The timing of your email outreach actually really matters. There's a lot of data on this. This is some of it. The day in which you send emails and the time at which you send emails can actually impact your email open rates. The way I like to think about it is from a human perspective. As you're looking at this data, think about when you're trying to catch people when they are on their computers, when they are not busy on other calls or in other meetings. So essentially, if you think about kind of the timing of your own day, think about places in your day where you're probably on your computer, looking at your inbox, and you would actually have time to sit down and respond. Mornings, lunchtime, and afternoons are really good time to do prospecting because typically people are on their computers, they're looking at their inbox, but they're not busy and distracted on other calls or in other meetings. You can also email a little bit differently and get creative with it. We at HubSpot have had awesome success using a tool called Vidyard. It's a video software that allows us to input little quick hit videos inside of our email templates. It's a great way to do call follow-up. I've used it a lot post-demo to do a quick recap for a full team. I've also used it in prospecting to maybe show a target account like, hey, here's 3 things I noticed about your website that I think could be improved. I would love to discuss more about how we could help you to improve that. And also just give a nice visual of introducing myself in a more creative way than just a blank email. So play with ways that you can be really creative to stand out from the pack as you're doing some cold to warm prospecting. We really like video here, and there's data that people and our prospects like it too. So as we're looking at a discovery call, we talked a little bit about this in your sales process, but I think the most important thing to remember is the structuring of your discovery call. And I think that these 5 things actually are things that you need to make sure that you are continually discovering and making sure that you are still on the same page about with your prospects as you take them through the sales process. These 5 things are GPCT, and I like to add I as my special sauce. Now, this stands for goals, plans, challenges, timeline, and impact. Quickest and easiest way to think about this is, as you are working with someone new, you want to understand what their goals are. Now, I always bucket this into, there are 2 categories with GPCTI. There's the goals, plans, challenges, timeline, and impact of the individual that you're talking with. And then there's the GPCTI of the business organization yourself if you're selling business to business. What I mean by that is, if you are talking to a marketer, a salesperson, and a CEO, their GPCTI might be wildly different because they are working very different roles at the business. They might have different things that are bugging them in their day-to-day. But ultimately, they're probably all working towards a shared goal of the business. You as the salesperson want to really uncover what all of these goals are. And then as you start to uncover goals, you want to also understand what the priority ranking is here. Sometimes someone will throw a ton of goals at you. You go, that's really great. What you really want to understand too is, okay, that's amazing. You just told me, 5, 10 things that you want to do. These are all awesome. But if you had to pick what is the most high priority one that we need to solve for right now? And then, like I said, you want to understand which ones different people are responsible for. From there, you want to start to talk plans. All right, you gave me your goals. How are you planning on doing it? How are you actually planning on achieving it? Challenges comes next. Theoretically, okay, you've told me how you're planning on doing it. What are the challenges that are standing in your way of achieving these goals? What are the challenges that are standing in the business's way? Timeline. When do you need this done by? Again, we can come back to priority with timeline. I also like to ask with timeline, in a perfect world, when would you have liked this done? When do you need to get this done by? And then impact is the one I really like to add to really pull all of these and gel these together, which is ultimately, what is the overall impact to the business if you don't achieve these goals on the timeline you just told me? And then also, what is the impact to your role if you're not able to achieve these goals on the timeline you just told me? Understanding all of these is going to really help you to know that you are taking a qualified prospect into the next steps of your sales process, but also it's going to really help you to objection handle down the line. Objection handling is something that we should want to do. And by that, I mean, you should want your prospects to feel comfortable telling you potential objections. If I get to the end of the sales process and someone hasn't told me any potential concerns, anything they think might be wrong, it's just been yes, 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 I get a little concerned that maybe there's something that they didn't feel comfortable sharing with me. We really want to give our prospects the opportunity to feel comfortable, to feel human and share, hey, I love this, but actually I'm really concerned maybe my boss wouldn't. Or, I am the owner and founder. I am absolutely bought in on this, but we're really concerned about budget. We got burned a little bit with some other solutions. Here's what we're worried about in this capacity. That will give you the opportunity to objection handle. And then you can turn right back to use your GPCTI that you've discovered to lean into this and to overcome objections with your prospects by basically tying it back to all the really good information that they've shared with you about what they're trying to get down, about what their goals are, about what's been stopping them from achieving those goals in the past. You can tie it all back to how your product or service is going to help them achieve those goals. All of this ties into the idea of consultative selling. I've talked a lot about being a trusted advisor throughout the sales process, but I really believe that the best and most effective way to sell, both for you and for your prospects and customers, is by running a consultative sale. So by that, I mean thinking of yourself as becoming a partner in this process instead of a standalone sales executive, really having genuine curiosity in the other person's business and really, really doing your due diligence to run your discovery and do your GPCTI so that you can best understand how your product is really going to help your champion, your business owner, your other business you're selling to reach the business's goals or reach his or her personal goals. Help your champion sell internally. If you're really running a true consultative sale, it's going to feel like it's clicking in really well, and it's really going to be a much nicer experience and a much more effective experience for you as a salesperson and also for your prospects and customers. So let's start to think about how automation can help you sell smarter. Automation, I think, is really, really key in running an effective sales process. As a sales rep, there is a lot to do, and you're often spending your time either in in-person meetings or on the phone. You're running proof of concept, you're running demos, you're giving resources, you're filming videos, you're doing prospecting. You've got a lot of things to do. You need to have systems in place that are going to help you to do these quickly and effectively. So with that, you want to make sure you have systems and tools in place that are going to help you to be in control. This is a snapshot of a HubSpot deal pipeline. If you are tracking any of your deals in a spreadsheet, Excel spreadsheet, Evernote, written notebook, I would encourage you to stop that immediately and pick a CRM system that you like and that you can use for you and your business in the long term. This is going to help you to really be able to track everything, to see a full 360-degree picture of how your pipeline is performing. And this is going to allow you to be more proactive rather than reactive as a salesperson. As you're selling, it's really important to understand you are setting targets either for yourself as a founder or you're setting targets for a new sales hire. It's going to be really important to understand if those targets are achievable by understanding how much you actually have in the pipeline. By that, I mean, when you set your different sales processes and your sales steps, you want to know, okay, great. In order for us to be able to win X amount of business, we actually need about this many deals of this size in play and demo, this many in negotiation, this many leads coming into that funnel. Really important to be able to track this and then to be ahead of the ball if you're seeing that the numbers aren't adding up versus being reactive and going, oh no, we missed a month, we missed a quarter. How do we go about fixing that? So as we were just talking about, I think building a data-driven culture is really, really, really important. Your systems should work for you. You should have a CRM in place that you really feel is user-friendly, that's easy to use, that's easy to track, and that shows data to your whole team. I think there's no worse feeling than being a team member and feeling like there's one division that's operating just off a separate reporting, or they're telling you numbers, but you really have never seen the reporting to tie to that. It just creates a feeling of unease versus a feeling of really like good culture, good buy-in, and transparency. Some things you can do to build that data-driven culture are lean on software like your CRM, and then also look at dashboards, work rates, coaching scorecards. You can have a public call review, things like that, but make sure that your team is really able to see what top performers are doing and help each other. You can also use conversion data to trigger outreach. This goes back to some of the fears that we talked about, especially the fear of like rejection and being too pushy. If you're using conversion data, so basically known behavioral data, i.e., your prospect came by your website and looked at a pricing page or downloaded something or live chatted in, that tells you you're not being pushy, you're being helpful. If you reach out and say to them, hey, I saw you were on our pricing page. Can I answer any questions for you about the way we price and package? Maybe we should set up a call to discuss. Are you looking at evaluating a software in our space? Would love to talk with you. Using conversion data is going to make your outreach a lot more timely, which is going to make it a lot more appealing to your prospect. You can also use sequences, which will automate your one-to-one email follow-up, which is going to save you a ton of time. So this goes back to what we were talking about with that outreach. Getting someone actually engaged in a sales process with you often takes quite a lot of touch points, kind of around like the 8 to 9 touch points between emails and calls, especially if you are going after them cold. By that, I mean, this is someone you've determined is a good fit. They are not familiar with your product or business yet. I don't have a problem with cold prospecting as long as it is done in a really personalized, targeted, and effective way. And with that, you want to be as efficient as possible. So you want to use things like sequences that are going to automate your one-to-one outreach by sending up to 5 emails after your first email to make sure that you send a really awesome first targeted email. 2 days later, if that person has or hasn't opened it or hasn't responded, you want another email to go out. Time is a deal killer in sales. You really want to make sure that you've got tools in place to automate your follow-up, keep your ask top of mind, and make sure that you are able to quickly and succinctly move people through your sales process while providing them with the information they need. You also want to reduce friction in your sales process. This is one that I know we have probably all gone through, the back and forth of trying to schedule an actual meeting with someone. I know I've experienced it a lot. It's personally something I don't love, the back and forth of, hey, I'm free at 3. Oh, you're free at 4. Let's go email about this a ton. If you can trim this up and make it really, really frictionless for people to get on your calendar, it's again going to start building that trusted advisor status really, really early on in your sales process. You're going to go, oh, how great, how seamless. I'll just book time with them. If I have questions mid-sales process, I don't have to email them asking to get back on their calendar. I can just book time with them for a 15-minute call. We can follow up mid-sales process, pre-demo. We can do a check-in, whatever it might be. Use tools that are going to reduce friction, make your prospects really happy, automate your outreach, make your sales system, make your selling as seamless and as frictionless as possible. So that is everything I had to share with you. Remember, ultimately, You are a human talking to other humans. If you have a great product, you're selling a great product. You are trying to uncover if people have challenges, goals that your product can either help overcome or help them achieve. You are trying to help people. And in being a quality salesperson, ultimately, you're trying to discover as much information as possible so that you can do the best job possible running a sales process and providing information and providing a recommendation back to that prospect or that customer. I will turn it over to everyone. Questions? I haven't had a chance to check the Q&A yet, but I will now. Questions, comments, concerns, anything we didn't cover that anyone was hoping to hear, happy to hear it now.
Perfect. And with that, I invite everyone to drop your questions in the Q&A, post your comments in the chat. Please definitely reach out if you have anything that you want some clarification on. I know there was quite a bit of information covered.
There is a ton of information that we covered in there. Yeah, I know it's a lot. But yeah, I'm very, very passionate about sales. We've got an awesome sales blog at HubSpot as well. So if you're ever looking for like call scripts, templates, tips, tricks of the trade, come read our sales blog. We've got a lot of academy courses as well. We have a huge sales org and we're always willing to share what works for us. I think that's a really nice part about sales is there's kind of a community mentality to anyone who's selling. So always keep that in mind. If you're feeling like you're struggling to make sales, there's another salesperson out there who's feeling the same. You can always commiserate and you can always talk tips and how to get better with anyone.
Wonderful. That's great. I always like to end the session with one question for my speaker. If there is one golden nugget, one tidbit, one quick thing, what would you say that the attendees should keep and remember for when they're making that next sales call?
Absolutely. Yeah, I would say research and personalization. When you're making your next sales call, the more prepared you can be, the more personalized, the more you can have shown that you've done your research. It goes just above and beyond. Put yourself in I know I've said this a few times now, but put yourself in your prospective buyer's shoes. I think there was a question, by the way, I will share the slides, but put yourself in your prospective buyer's shoes. Think about how you would like to be communicated with. Think about times when you've had an awesome experience purchasing a product or buying from a business or evaluating a software for your own business or for your own personal needs. Look to mirror that when you go to sell. And then if I can add a second part, this one isn't as keyed into exactly the sales motion, but as founders, I know we're in the founder track here. The earlier you can get a CRM system in place that you like, that is user-friendly, that works for your business, that helps your salespeople to actually run their pipeline, see their notes, see their call notes, put everything in one place, the better. I think a lot of times what happens to sales reps is they're not able to do that targeted and personalized outreach that I talked about because they don't have the tools in place. They don't see how their prospects are engaging with the website, how their prospects are opening marketing emails, if they filled out forms. They're fed a bunch of cold leads through a silo or just have to go hunt them on their own. And then they couldn't even see easily like, oh yeah, I just emailed that person, a year ago at a different business. Keeping everything in one place is going to really, really empower your sales team to do the right type of outreach. And it's just going to serve your business so well in the long run. So whether it's our CRM or another one, I'm very, very bullish on implementing CRM very early, really as early as possible, and then buying into it, making your team use it, making sure everyone logs their notes in there. It's only going to serve all your reps better and anyone better who's trying to sell.
Wonderful. Yes. And that is a great note. Thank you so much. And to the question that was sent there to anyone who didn't see it, Daniel was asking about the slides that will be shared after the session. Just a note to everyone, as long as our speakers are okay with it, we are sharing the recording, which has the slides and our speakers' audio shared with all of our attendees following the session. Perfect. Daniel has another question.
Yeah. You know what? I really think this is an interesting one. I think there's a few things that if I look at other fellow successful salespeople, there is some type of stuff where there's a little bit of a personality who just likes engaging with other people. As a salesperson, you do have to talk to other people. You do have to be fairly presentational. Sometimes you do have to run a process. So once in a while, I've had teammates who are like, yeah, I'm super introverted. That is not my thing. I don't like that type of engagement. So I think, yes, sometimes personality does play into it, but ultimately I think about 90% of it can be learned. And that's where it comes into like, are you a coachable person? Are you someone who's able to actively listen? Are you someone who's able to learn your product really well and then ultimately just learn how to ask people questions? I think the most successful salespeople that I've seen, they are smart, they are organized, but they're really able to like do a good job of discovery, of asking questions, of being really, really genuinely curious, getting to know their prospects, getting to know their customers, really know their business, getting different internal champions together, and really being like that quarterback for the sales process. So I have to say, I think 90% of it can be learned. A little bit of it is the sprinkle of like, do you just like talking to people, like being, in front of people? Some people don't love that, but most times I think you can probably, if you're a coachable person and someone who's open to learning and learning a new skill set, you can definitely learn, I would say, how to sell well.
Perfect. That's great. Hopefully that answers your question, Daniel. I invite everyone to, if you have any other follow-up questions, drop a question in the Q&A or post it in the chat. We'd be happy to respond to the question.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll hang out for a couple more minutes if anyone has any other questions. Feel free to. Awesome. Thanks. Okay, glad, Daniel. It's always, by the way, I'll say to that just while we have an extra minute, it is always a learning process. Even the best sales reps, if you have a new product or a new motion or a new market you go into, all of a sudden you can have this feeling of like, I don't know how to sell this thing. I think I'll say it one more time, with sales, the more open you can be to being coachable and learning every single day, that's what really makes a good salesperson. That's where I've seen the most successful people at HubSpot. We do a lot of team information share. It's really kind of the expectation that if someone's a top performer, that they would turn around and say what's been working for them. So most of it is us just relying on each other to go like, you look like you figured this out. How are you doing it? Tell me, I'd love to learn from you. And we really all share with each other like that.
Perfect. Yeah, couldn't have said it any better, and that's great. So with that, if you have any follow-up questions, do not hesitate to reach out to our speakers, reach out to everyone. We will be sharing a recording of the session following today's presentation and at the end of VSW. With that, I will take this time to say thank you. Thank you to HubSpot for Startup for hosting such great presentations today, and this one as well. Thank you to all of our attendees for taking the time to watch today's presentation.